to introduce you now to Andy Clark. And Andy's, speaking of the Third Industrial Revolution, he's going to give us a little bit of a different tack on that. And Mr. Clark has a degree in engineering, and he's worked for a goodly number of aerospace firms, and he lives over in the local area. Andy Clark.
Right, when he says space is for everybody, take a look around you. There are no windows. You can hear the hum of an air conditioner. You could well be 500 miles up in the sky. Why shouldn't you be? That's the challenge. It's a challenge Jim's selling, it's a challenge I'm selling. We're all looking for solutions to the same problem. We found a slightly different solution. Some of the reasons stem out of being in the business for a long time. Who amongst you think that space exploration is the purview of big government? Come on, put your hands up. Do you know what big government really is? I'll show you. The four big hitters in the US budget are Treasury, Social Security, Defense, Health and Human Services. Interestingly enough, DoD pensions don't come out of that budget, they come out of, where is it, down here, Corps of Engineers. NASA's a very small part of it, it's not big government. It has to fight very hard for what money it gets. We don't bash NASA, not as a company, not because we live close to them, but mainly because they do a pretty good job with what limited funds they get. And this is another chart that really led our thinking towards the not-for-profit model, simply because when you look at the late 80s, DoD expenditure on space exploration was way outstripping NASA's. In fact, it is still slightly ahead because the NASA graph has curved down as well. So big government is spending money in space, but the DoD was spending it in the late 80s about twice the rate it was spending it with NASA. And for my money, you get far better results out of NASA. Space Frontier Operations was born out of a discussion on the third floor of the Operations and Checkout building at KSC back in 1991. What can we do to make space available for everybody? Everybody should be part of it. I mean, we all pay taxes, don't we? So you've all got a stake in it. Why did NASA write to you last and say, would you like to become an astronaut? They didn't. You have to write to them. In fact, there's an astronaut call out right now. If anybody's interested, call JSC. They'll send you the papers. So we got to looking around, we got to looking at models, we got to looking at partnerships, private corporations, public corporations. We're obviously not ready to become a public corporation, neither is Jim, he's not there yet. He looked at it and he says, well, I'm going to go do this, I'm going to go to my asteroid, and then when we found out what we've got, then we'll float it, which is fine. Bottom line is you need a market, you need something to sell. What we're selling inside Space Frontier Operations is the support of space for everybody, and it is for everybody. Although in practice we'll probably find only the top 10% of the world will actually get to space. You're not in for it. Oh, I'm sorry. The concept fleshed itself out through 1992 and into 1993, and we finally wound up with a not-for-profit corporation. And the reason we did that was because in a private corporation you're limited in the number of people you can have who have a stake in it. It's about 35, it's not very large. In a not-for-profit, we could accommodate the concept of members. We could accommodate the concept of making a ton of money. We could accommodate the concept of training and education. And we did. So we wound up looking at what we can do. Now we've got this form. What are we going to do with it? So what we did, we said to NASA, hey guys, we'd like to fly a gas can, and wouldn't it be nice if we could fly something like the Star Trek flag? Fly hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them damn things. Give everybody who's a member one on a nice little piece of paper and certificate and so on, and put it in a frame, and the rest will sell for charity. So Okay, we did. So we went up to NASA with a check in our hands and we talked to them, and they took the check and nothing happened, and about 6 weeks later we got a letter back from them with a check in it saying, you can't fly this, it's a frivolous payload. Had we flown it, we probably wouldn't have done it anymore. We'd have gone away. We'd have sold the remainder of the stuff, sent the proceeds to charities, and then just folded the thing up. But we didn't. We had money, we had members, we had something to do. So we started looking around for something to do, and the Radio Amateur Satellite Corporation came along. They needed some help. They needed some severe professional help putting the Phase 3D satellite together. They did not have an integration facility. They did not have the engineering complete. They, by any stretch of the imagination. They did, however, have a launch. The bird is due to fly an Ariane 502 out of Peru this year. We did put the spacecraft integration facility into Orlando International Airport, which is terribly far from here. We did start doing some design and engineering work for the spacecraft, and the spacecraft is basically now fully assembled and ready to roll. It launches later this summer from Peru. We are now looking around for something else, and we found another payload, a getaway special payload, that we want to sell through an international competition. And we want to see physical science experiments, not life science experiments. One of the interesting things about a gas payload is that if you build one, you lose it for the last 90 days. It goes into the Great Moor of KSC, and the next time you see it, it's bolted to the shuttle. So all these people who want to fly fruit flies and ants and things like this, so you can go through God knows how many generations in that amount of time if they don't run out of food and starve to death first. So we want to limit it to physical sciences, or possibly physical chemistry type experiments. And we will have the details of that competition out on the streets in the next 3 to 4 weeks, I guess. We should firm up the deal on the flight itself within the next 2 weeks. So, not for profit, yeah, you can make a ton of money. Not for profit, yeah, you can involve everybody. Not for profit, yeah, you can do real engineering. Not for profit, yeah, you can fly. We are looking at, to come back to what Jim was looking at, big dumb boosters. We have developed a design reference mission that is looking at 250 metric tons to an 850 kilometers circular orbit, unmanned. We are looking at developing that low Earth orbit infrastructure and the space capability to get there. Because no matter what anybody says, no matter what they think, what they do, unless you are in low Earth orbit with a lot of stuff, you're not going to go anywhere very quickly. The bottom line to all that is that we can make this economically viable. We can fly 50 times a year. Just get a lot of stuff done. In terms of the manned segment, you're looking at a robust, relatively small, reusable system. As much reusability as you want to put into it. Titan 4, man-rated, just about. Ariane 5, man-rated, just about. The final space vehicle will be reusable. Boosters will probably be thrown away, at least the early ones. Then you get back into what the first speaker was talking about, when you've got all this stuff up there, and you've got it working, and you've got human-sized capability going on, then you can actually build spacecraft. You have the conditioned volume in which to process minerals. You can do all the things these guys want to do, which is fine, and I have no problem with that. But we're really, right now, around putting that first step in place, which is getting a lot of stuff in the low Earth orbit, and starting to use the environment. Now, can we do it? Can we finance it as a not-for-profit? The answer is yes, we can. How is it financed? Well, we can go to big business and we can find some financing from them. We can go to Uncle Sam and find some financing from them.
or we can just go to big business and say, hey, you oil companies, you're going to run out of oil in between 20 and 50 years, maybe a little longer, depending on whose model you listen to. Well, that's okay, but the oil companies routinely spend between $2 and $3 billion a year on exploration. We'd like to divert some of that to the exploration space and the exploration of new energy sources. Because whether they like it or not, the oil companies are in the energy business. They may also be in the chemical business, but primarily they're in the energy business. Now, if you look at the economics of going from moon to mine helium-3, they're very definitely in our favor, providing, one, we can get there and get the stuff, and two, somebody out there designs, develops, and builds a feasible helium-3 reactor, fusion reactor. I think the latter will happen. I think when energy becomes a significant problem, we'll probably go and get it. And we will probably go and get the helium-3, which just happens to absorb it like sponge. We will probably have to develop some really large spacecraft and some really large robotic systems to go and do it. But we're not going to do any of it at all until we are firmly established in the road. Quite a lot of stuff, just stuff. Doesn't matter whether it's rolled steel joists, wooden beams, beer kegs, or what. We're going to need to launch an awful lot of stuff just to survive as humans up there in a reasonable environment. And right now, I don't consider either Mir, the space shuttle, or even the upcoming International Space Station to be reasonable environments. And I worked on both shuttle and International Space Station. They're too small. They're too cramped. They are ideal for a certain amount of research and development. They are ideal pathfinders, but they should be stopped. We should be building bigger stuff. And that really is where I think X-33 and its derivatives come into the picture, because I don't think the shuttle's going to be flying much after 2012. And that'll be up around STS-400. Shuttles basically have a 100 flight limit on the structures right now. I don't know whether that will be lifted or not. It may be, depends on how the structures are. But yes, if I go after the energy companies, the drug companies, as a 501c3 charity, and I go grab from them large donations, they get immediate tax benefit. Uncle Sam starts to pay 1%. They also get the opportunity to be involved in the development of an infrastructure which is only going to grow. And I suspect, from what I've heard talking to some of these people, that they will grab hold of that opportunity. It will be a foot on the ladder. Whether we like it or not, inside SFO, they will have an investment. And they will expect a return. And the return for them is going to be relatively cheap access, cheaper than they charge Jim, for instance. So yeah, the models are out there. Yeah, they can be made to work. Yeah, they require a little bit of altruism sometimes. But it's one way of doing it. Jim's got another one. Maybe they'll both work. They're certainly both private. And I'm with Jim when it comes to the private exploration space. SFO expects to be the premier exploration and settlement company. And right now, with about 120 people, and those 120 people scattered mainly through Europe and North America, but one or two down in Australia too. We're actually becoming international, and we're pushing forward with a lot of plans. So you can join us. Everybody's welcome to join. It's the whole idea of a membership organization. And you can do within that membership whatever you want to do in terms of supporting the overall aims of SFO. You can be very active, part of the programs. They find it something to do. Like most not-for-profits, we're an equal opportunity exploiter. In fact, even Jim's an equal opportunity exploiter right now. He said most of his stuff's voluntary, right? So, you're all welcome to join. Everybody's welcome to join. We do some education. We do go out of our way to find ways of getting people hands-on experience with spacecraft and with spacecraft payloads. And that's not something you'll hear from most people standing up in front of these sorts of audiences at this conference. Everybody's welcome. If you don't have the skills, we'll train you. If you've got skills, you can use them. It doesn't matter what the skills are. The one thing you have to realize is that space is just going to be an extension of what happens here. We will need in space, ultimately, all the skills we have here. We'll need teachers, nurses, doctors, all the rest of it. But we'll also need people skills. All of those things, they're absolutely necessary. Otherwise, we're still going to be flying with elite. And it's not about flying with elite, it's about everyday operations by people, albeit in a slightly different environment. And the not-for-profit can get you there. We can get you there, we can get you there probably within the next 10 to 15 years. Things go the way we expect them to. And one thing that we are seeing, and we do a lot of these talks in a lot of different places, we are beginning to see an upsurge in interest in space in both the schools and in the general public. We're beginning to see more and more hits, more requests for information now than we did 5 years ago. Some of that, of course, is because we are better known, but some of it does truly represent a change in more people viewing exploration of space, and more people see it as something worthwhile. I think Jim would probably go with that. Bottom line is, not-for-profits do work, they can work, they can make a ton of money. The beauty of them is that ton of money has to be reinvested. We don't have stockholders, we have to give it away to. And we're not, as a result, bound by the norms of Wall Street or Zurich or anywhere else. We can take the politically unpopular, hopefully logically correct position when it's necessary. With that, I'll quit boring you and turn it back over to Gary here, and so thank you very much for listening.
Y'all have any questions?
Yeah. Mr. Clark, I never could hear the name of the group that you're representing.
That was my fault, I'm sorry. I should have said that before we came in.
Space Frontier Operations.
Okay. Are you related to the Space Frontier Foundation?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
You have to make that distinction. I may sue you if you don't. I don't have a problem with the Space Frontier Foundation, but I accept in the fact that we often get confused with them. We do not tell the government how to spend the money that is voted for space. I think NASA does a pretty good job with its budget. They have a lot of people dragging on them one way or another. We're not about telling the government how to spend its money on space. We're not a political action committee, and we are not a lobbying group, and in fact our charter prevents us from doing those two things.
Any other questions?
For Jim, have you targeted an asteroid yet?
Pardon me?
Have you targeted an asteroid?
We have a team at the University of Texas, Austin, working on, there are about 400 near-Earth asteroids that have been discovered and their orbits calculated. Before I answer that question specifically, you can never have enough. And these things are as much dangerous to the Earth as they are beneficial. We're running into them all the time. And on June 10th, I'm going down to the American Astronomical Society annual meeting in Winston-Salem. I'm going to announce the Benson Prize for the amateur discovery of near-Earth asteroids. About 400 are known right now, and I'm going to offer a cash prize to the next 10 that are discovered by amateurs. The process that we're going through is to take the 400 known near-Earth asteroids and run it through a computer program that calculates the energy requirement to get there, the delta V. If it's anything over about 5 kilometers per second, it's too much, we're going to throw them out. So basically, we're looking at the year 2000 through 2002 times 400 asteroids times 18 different targets, dates as they go around their orbit. So if you want to multiply 400 times 3 times 18, that's how many trajectory calculations we're doing. And anything under 5 kilometers per second within that date range is a potential target. Then we want it to be a kilometer or larger in diameter. That will eliminate some more, and by then we're probably down to a fairly small group. But we don't have to make that decision for at least another year and a half.
As a follow-up question, are we planning to fly by or orbit?
We're going to fly alongside it. Orbiting these things is very difficult because they're funny shapes. They don't necessarily revolve or rotate properly. And doing an orbit around them, because the gravity is so low, you can skim by literally within meters, and that's kind of dangerous. So we're just going to fly in parallel.
How long?
Until we have accomplished whatever we can get out of it. I mean, this is assuming that everything goes well. We're trying to use instruments and subsystems that have a good heritage, so the reliability factor will be high. But at some point, we're going to run out of things to measure, and turn off the radio receivers, and we'll probably set it down on the surface, or it'll bounce around and probably be damaged. But somebody wants to go reclaim it, as an artifact, 50 years from now, it'll probably still be sitting there.
One of the issues is, how do you know what's on the surfaces inside? Now, I wouldn't doubt if you found an iron meteorite, that it's probably iron all the way through, but if you find a carbonaceous meteorite, it might get a comet on the inside.
That's a real problem. As a matter of fact, there's a controversy within the scientific community that tries to correlate there are different classifications for meteorites. One of the easiest ones has 14 different classifications. And even at that, scientists don't agree on which of these 14 meteorite types correlate to which 14 asteroid types. This stuff is unknown. We don't know what's going to be on the surface or what isn't going to be. We don't know if it's going to be, bare stainless steel, although we have a fairly good idea that there's only really one stainless steel near-Earth asteroid that's been identified, 1986 DA. There's one more that's suspected it might be, but only if it's covered very deeply by a surface, of rubble. So we don't know if we're going to wind up with something that's spick and span clean, or if it's going to have, up to 60 feet of debris on top of it. People are kind of guessing it's going to be more like about 3 feet, of rock and gravel. But we'll only be measuring the surface. So we don't know what's underneath, but I think what's on top indicates what's under there, because it was from a collision and the dust coming back in and settling on the surface. Oh. Okay, we'll get the front and the back, and then over here, and then I'll quit.
Well, actually, I've got a question for both of you.
Okay.
One for you and one for you, if that works.
Sure.
First of all, for you, Jim, how concerned are you about once you stake your claim, as you put it, either organizations such as the UN or other countries say we want a bite of that, something along
Right.
the lines of common use for all mankind. How concerned are you that your claim will?
What are the repercussions and legal, ramifications of making a claim, to another planetary body? The 1967 Outer Space Treaty forbids nations from claiming sovereignty, and we're not a nation. That same treaty, which has also been widely ratified, allows the utilization of resources, but doesn't really go into it in much depth. The Moon Treaty is the one that really has the horrible language about everything in space belonging to everybody equally, and it hasn't been ratified by one single spacefaring nation. What we're trying to do, we have literally several $1 million in the budget for nothing but publicity. We basically want to go up there and just start a hell of a controversy in terms of private property rights in space. Our attitude right now is possession is 9/10 of the law, first come, first served, and if the UN wants to send a tank up to say we can't do it, fine, let them. But there's really no entity on Earth that has any standing that's recognized by anyone to adjudicate these things, and we just need to get the process rolling.
And for you, Andy, how do we find out more about your organization?
Oh, they never asked. I just happen to have some stuff with me. And you're welcome to it, and everybody's welcome to it. The company's in Cape Canaveral. I have a ton of kind of generic business. I have some application forms. Shouldn't do too much in the way of blatant advertising here, but I'm just going to take the time to plug the International Lunar and Mars Exploration Conference, which we're hosting in Cocoa Beach through the 8th of October this year. There are some preliminary registration forms and papers out on the tables outside. Anybody who wants any more information, call, fill in a form, pick up the phone number, come talk to us.
I think there's one.
We got time for one more question.
Yeah, Jim, who do you plan on selling this information to, and is it going to have some proprietary nature that can be of particular value to a specific purchaser?
The only thing we can do is right now is judge the market on what the current price is. As I mentioned, it's $60 million per data set. The obvious target for selling the data is to NASA. I talked to Dan Golden about it. He absolutely developed a blocked mind about what the word commercialization means. He simply doesn't understand that word. He thinks it actually means privatization. I've gone back to NASA headquarters a couple times. I've briefed them. They know what we're doing. It's pretty supportive feedback I'm getting at a high level, and we've been asked to give Golden a formal briefing. Based on that formal briefing, sometime in July, we're actually going to have our official announcement, probably at the Space Frontier Foundation CATS Symposium, Cheap Access to Space. As far as I'm concerned, any data that we collect, it will be coming back highly encrypted to us, and we'll put it in the safe and wait till the highest bidder comes along. That data is just data. It's my proprietary data, just like Exxon going out and doing seismic surveys and locking that data up for their own internal use. Scientists don't have any money. Scientists don't buy anything. The real markets are governments, the U.S. government, Japanese government, or the European government. But there are about 13 or 14 other income sources. That's actually the easiest to describe and understand, but there are other ones too.
Yeah, we'll build your payloads for you.
Pardon me?
We'll build your payloads for you.
Okay.
Thank you, Tim.
All right, thank you all.